Ladies and gentlemen, hello and welcome to TTV News with some latest events in the province. And now we come into details. Ladies and gentlemen, on January 28, delegates attending the 13th Congress of the Communist Party of Vietnam continued to discuss Congress documents on behalf of the Presidium Mr. Vương Đình Huệ, member of the Politburo, Secretary of the Hanoi City Party Committee, chaired the meeting.
In the afternoon of the same day, delegates listened to the reports of the 12th Central Executive Committee on personal work of the 13th Central Executive Committee. The delegates discussed and voted on the number of members of the 13th Central Executive Committee. After that, the delegates worked in groups discussing the standards and structure of the 13th Central Executive Committee. As of January 27, the Congress worked all day at the conference hall discussing the party's 13th Congress documents. With an exciting, frank and democratic discussion atmosphere, during the last 2 days, 36 delegates from delegations, party committees, party civil affairs committee, and agencies gave their opinions to clarify their chief resource as well as propose directions and tasks for the 13th National Party Congress.
The delegation of the province is attending the 13th National Party Congress with a very special attitude. Especially the delegates are aware that this is a change to bring tone, feeling and appreciation of all party members and people of to the Congress.
The delegates are also aware that it's necessary for them to spend an adequate time to carefully study the documents submitted to the Congress. At the discussion sessions, the majority of delegates make clearer statements about the contents of the document and also recommended many relevant issues to the Congress Forum. Sharing about this issue, Mr. Huỳnh Thanh Phương, member of the Provincial Party Committee, deputy head of the delegation in charge of the Provincial National Assembly, said the delegates agree that the contents submitted to this Congress have been prepared very meticulously, methodically, and thoroughly through many rounds, many times. There are many innovations in method and content. This is the product of the intellectual crystallization of the entire party and people, demonstrating a determination to rise for a prosperous country in the future. Being a border province, the delegates pay special attention to the protection of border security, border and people protection in the border areas. The delegate wished and recommended in the coming time the central authorities continue to invest in developing defense areas, border residential clusters, border lights, border patrol roads to ensure the development requirements, border protection requirements, social order in border areas, and combine economic development with security, in which paying attention to building dual-use work. Normally, it is a condition for economic development, ensuring life social security, but in the case of demand, it becomes a tool to serve for ensuring national defense and security. Facing the difficulties and challenges of 2020, the delegates considered that in the coming time, with the current economic development conditions, our country's economy is very vulnerable, in which businesses are unaffected. Mr. Huỳnh Thanh Phương hopes that in the coming time, the central government will have many investment solutions to support businesses for development, because the heart of businesses is the heart of the economy, especially small and medium-scale businesses, as well as micro-enterprises, how they can sustain and develop after the COVID-19 pandemic to make a worthy contribution to the stability and development of the country. By 2020, many communes in 5 districts of Tây Ninh province receive benefits from the program One Free Freight have been invested in projects. The completed projects have contributed to implementing the goal of sustainable poverty reduction, reducing the gap in border rural areas, towns and townships. The people's material and spiritual life have been raised. Specifically, 30 projects of infrastructure investment supporting have been completed with a total cost of more than 13 billion Vietnam dong. The projects of maintenance of infrastructure works after the investment have been implemented with a cost of over 990 billion Vietnam dong. Besides, there are many other projects, including the supporting project of production development, diversification of livelihoods, and multiplication of the poverty reduction model for communes under the program for the poor and near poor households. Project on capacity enhancing for communities and grassroots carriers of the communes under program One Rephrase. The support capital sources of the program One Rephrase over the years has helped the Khmer ethnic minority in the communes where have more favorable conditions in living and production, especially in the rural areas which are increasingly changing. Production development projects have brought into full play, contributing to increasing income, gradually improving and enhancing the quality of life of ethnic minorities in the area. Ninh Điền commune of Châu Thành District, Tây Ninh Province, is the border commune where people's life mainly depend on agriculture. Many members have a difficult life. They need capital support for trade and small business. Implementing the program to support women in starting a business, the Commune Women's Union have meeting of branches and groups of association for members to introduce and choose those in need of capital support with the amount of 5 million Vietnam dong for each. Typically, the case of Mrs. Võ Thị Ngọc Dung, born in 1982, currently residing in Tra Sim Hamlet. Previously, the couple worked as workers in Ho Chi Minh City. Their life was relatively stable. After that, her husband got a labor accident and lost one arm, so the whole family come back to Ninh to live. Every day, they work as hired laborers. Their life is extremely difficult and needy. In March 2020, considering the circumstances and needs of Miss Dung, the Commune Women's Union and the sponsor supported her with a store of bread and 2 million Vietnam dong in cash. Up to now, the family, including 4 people, is less strenuous than before, with the daily income from restaurant is more than 100,000 Vietnam dong. The timely support of the Women's Union and the hardship of women like Miss Dung have women who decide to start a business have more motivation to overcome poverty. In this year crop, the household cultivating rice in Bảo Dong conducted the harvest in the period near the Lunar New Year. The rice price is high. The household have more income for joyful shopping, preparing to welcome that holiday. At the same time, in the field, people have sown varieties in the winter-spring crop. The rice has already had green fruit, promising a good harvest for the next rice. The rice cultivation field in Hamlet to Bảo Dong Commune Gò Dầu District covers an area of more than 200 hectares. Until now, it has been a rice growing area with high yield. At present, a cooperative of high-quality rice farming services has been established. This cooperative is operating effectively. Most of the rice products here have a contract of product consumption. In this year crop, the rice price increased highly compared to the same period, with the average yield of the crop not less than 6 tons per hectare. Specifically, in the 2019 crop, the average price of commercial rice was only 5,000 Vietnam dong per kilogram of fresh rice, while the price of this year crop is at 6,900 to 7,000 Vietnam dong in the field, and at the end of the season, the price increases.
Ladies and gentlemen, the Lunar New Year is coming. Meanwhile, the concern of people in border communes at this time is how families with related living and doing business in Cambodia will reunite their reality and how to control COVID-19 epidemic. Please take a look at the following report.
Long Phu Commune of Bến Cầu District currently has a checkpoint of epidemic prevention. Since the Solar New Year up to now, the officers and soldiers on duty at the post have intensified the patrol and control over the border area 24 per 24 hours to ensure no illegal border crossing. Over the past few days, the weather became very cold at night. The jobs of the soldiers also became more difficult. We are determined to complete our mission even though we may not be able to return home on the occasion of Tết holiday. The task set out during the Lunar New Year is to prevent illegal entry and fight against serious epidemic. In Long Phuc, Khmer, there are many families with relatives living and working in Cambodia and wishing to reunite with relatives during Tết holiday. The Steering Committee for Disease Prevention and Control in Long Phuc, Khmer has specific plans to strengthen prevention at this time. First of all, the Khmer authorities have strengthened the propaganda to each household on the methods of epidemic prevention, not crossing borders in the case of not really needed, and preparing for prevention and treatment. We consider the communication to each household very important. Officials went to each house to talk to them while implementing the technical work and logistics. People living in the border areas have actually coordinated and abided by local recommendations in strengthening epidemic prevention. Many families have also mobilized relatives living in Cambodia to implement the epidemic prevention measures. For families with relatives across the border, we instructed that if they return home, they have to implement the medical registration to be isolated according to the regulations. People must be alert to the epidemic and report suspected cases, evading the medical declaration to the Khmer. In addition, we will prepare the supervision logistics. People living in inland areas are more interested in epidemic prevention at the border, especially when the Lunar New Year is coming. In the recent meeting with voters, COVID epidemic prevention is one of the issues that voters are interested in. The border is peaceful, the interior will be safe.
Ladies and gentlemen, that's all for today TTV News. Thank you for being with us and see you next time.